continue to conduct yourself this way, and more importantly, if you pick up the phone, go on Twitter or social media or whatever, and condone this type of behavior. That's hooliganism. That is criminal activity going on, and it is against our own community. There are elder black folks who are suffering at the hands of these looters, vandalizers, etc. Law enforcement is going to deal with them.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, joining us now on the Malzberg panel, it's Christopher Hahn, Democratic strategist, syndicated radio host, and Tom Borelli, Senior Fellow for FreedomWorks. And gentlemen, welcome to both of you. Let's start with Christopher. It was their own neighborhoods that they looted and burnt and rioted at and against. But now, you know, we have basically more and more accusations and proof by her own statement that the mayor, even though she denied it at first, told the police to stand by and let these people do what they want to do.
You know, it's a very difficult call, and I think that she was trying to try to stem it from becoming a bigger situation than it was. Obviously, it was spiraling out of control, and it's very difficult for people in government to make those kinds of decisions. Very few of them have done it well over time. So while the order to stand down may have saved lives, it also allowed the city to kind of take a lot of damage. So I know the mayor had a tough choice to make, and she chose to save lives rather than maybe further enrage the situation. Well,
I mean, I think that's a pathetic stance. Police are there to police. They're not there to be targets and have bottles and rocks and bricks and pipes thrown at them and then run. I think it was pathetic, and it just encourages the rioters and the looters and the thugs, Tom.
Well, clearly it was a bad call when you look at the consequences of her action in terms of whatever she said it will leave them room to destroy property, so to speak. And obviously, but this is really nothing new. Look, progressive leaders have devastated our urban communities forever for the last 30 years. Name the city, whether it be Philadelphia, Baltimore, Detroit, Chicago, it goes on and on. The big picture is this is a symptom of the disease. The problem is the real cause of the disease of progressive policies of failed leadership, high taxes, high regulation, and government dependency is making these cities unstable, and that's the social unrest. It's really not about the death of Mr. Gray. This is really about the frustration of living in a system that's not working. It's because of government failed policy.
Christopher, 50% unemployment in that neighborhood, 33% abandoned buildings, 33% people living in poverty. Hail to the Democrat policies over 50 years.
Well, look, I mean, there have been problems in Baltimore going back a very long way. No one party can be blamed.
Oh, yes, one party could be blamed, Christopher. Democrats.
I do not believe that.
Yeah, how about the other cities around the country where it happens? Democrats.
Yeah, when New York City was burning, you know, Republicans were in charge, so let's not forget that.
Really? When was that? Wait, time out. When was New York City burning?
In the 1970s, when the Ford administration and the Nixon administration left New York City for
that was a Ford administration's problem. I see.
Absolutely.
Okay, right. Okay.
So I mean, you know, there are failed policies on both sides in dealing with
school choice,
how
Chris, you know it.
Poverty and how income is distributed in this country. So we have to make sure that we are creating wealth and creating opportunities for all Americans.
And when are the Democrats going to start doing that in our major cities, Christopher?
I think they have. I think that there are a lot of success stories around the country. I think if you look at New York City, and if you look at some of the other cities around the country.
You mean New York City, that until the last year has been run by Republican mayors and administrations for the past 15 to 20 years?
Well, I'd hardly call Bloomberg a Republican or a
Democrat.
Oh,
he's not a Republican. I see.
There was a city council that was dominated by Democrats in New York City. Bloomberg was the exceptional independent person who really was, in my opinion, one of the best mayors in the history of the city of New York.
And Rudy Giuliani turned it around from the disastrous David Dinkins, where there were 2,000 people murdered every year in this city, and you couldn't go to the park across the street from where I'm sitting because it was a drug den under Dinkins, to making it into Disneyland by comparison. And now the murder rate in this city is below 500. That was Republican leadership.
I think that New York City is a huge success story, and I'm not going to take any credit away from anybody who's been involved with it, including Mr. Giuliani. But I do think that there was a lot of people on both sides of the aisle that were contributing to that success, and there was a real debate about how to get it done, and it was done right in New York City.
All right, now we have this narrative, the false narrative in Ferguson, the false narrative on Staten Island, and now we have a narrative that is developing here in Baltimore. We don't know all the facts. The police investigation has been handed over to the prosecutors today, and we do not know what they have found so far, but we do know what one prisoner who was allegedly in that van with the deceased had to say, and the Washington Post has it on their front page today. Could it be that this is going to turn out to be another mythological story? We'll tell you what the prisoner said, and we'll debate it right here when the panel returns. All right, we're back with the Malzberg panel, ladies and gentlemen, Christopher Hahn and Tom Borelli. And gentlemen, Christopher, the Washington Post reporting that a prisoner sharing the police transport van with Freddie Gray, the gentleman who died, told investigators he could hear Gray, quote, banging against the walls of the vehicle and believed that he was, quote, intentionally trying to harm himself. He could not see him, but he could hear him basically in the compartment next door. We don't know. There's a lot of unanswered questions. We have no idea. But common sense to me would dictate if they have findings that would indict the officers, not literally, but at least figuratively, we would have made that public to quell the crowd and the rioters and the potential future rioters. Instead, we're hearing we're not going to get any information for quite some time, and now we're finding this out. What happens? What happens if the determination is made that, however it happened, Freddie Gray was responsible for his own injuries?
Well, look, I think that the state's attorney in Maryland is doing the right thing by taking her time and reviewing all the evidence and trying to understand what actually happened. I'm not going to try to take the report, or the secondhand report, really, of a prisoner in the van. We don't know what his motivation is. And I think that's what the state's attorney's doing. They're trying to figure out exactly what happened, how it happened, and they're going to come to a determination whether an indictment is a responsible move for them. And I think, when that decision comes down, we can only hope that that the people of Baltimore understand that justice was carried out and that their voices were heard, and that no further violence and rioting occurs.
All right, Tom, by the way, there's a kind of a conflict of interest with the state's attorney. If we're talking about the same woman, her husband is a councilman from that district where this occurred, apparently, and there's, if I have that story correct, but there's a question as to whether or not she should recuse herself. But aside from that, what do you make of this Washington Post story?
Well, we really don't know, and I kind of agree with Chris on this one. We don't know. We have to be patient. We have to get all the facts, because as you mentioned before, when you go too fast, people make mistakes. And unfortunately, I think whatever the result is, it's going to lead to more social unrest, because those seeds have already been set really around the country. In New York City last night, I believe 120 people were arrested. So again, and it's going to be summer, so it's going to be warm out, so I'm really concerned about future social unrest, regardless of what this report says.
Whatever we do, we shouldn't put these people in jail. I want you to listen to Hillary Clinton. Watch and listen.
It's time to change our approach. It's time to end the era of mass incarceration. We need a true national debate about how to reduce our prison population while keeping our communities safe. I don't know all the answers. That's why I'm here, to ask all the smart people at Columbia and in New York to start thinking this through with me.
Yeah, she doesn't know. She just wants to answer. Please help me. Christopher, I got an idea. She could let all the people out of jail and let them live in Chappaqua, set up high-rise apartment buildings, low-income housing, and make them her neighbors. Wouldn't that be lovely?
Well, if she did that, you'd be accusing her of another Whitewater, wouldn't you now? So that's a very 1990s joke. I hope some of your audience got it. But look, I mean, the most important thing a leader can say is, can you help me solve this problem? These are major problems.
What, too many people in jail? Wait, too many people in jail is a problem?
Well, I think there are too many people in jail.
Really, what should we do? How should we judge that there are too many people in jail? Based on what?
I think that nonviolent drug offenders probably shouldn't be in jail, and they should be in treatment, and they should be getting their lives back together. And that is a fault in our system. We're spending far too much money incarcerating people, warehousing people for nothing.
Well, I'll tell you what it's for, Tom. Well, Christopher, with all due respect, and I want Tom to weigh in on this, it's not for nothing. Her husband instituted these policies, which she seems to conveniently have forgotten. Maybe she needs somebody to tell her. And by the way, crime is way, way, way down since these new policies took effect in the 90s. So it's not for nothing. We've seen the results, and they're good results, Tom.
Well, first of all, I have to laugh that Hillary said she has to listen to the smart people in New York
Columbia.
and Columbia, because obviously there's no other smart people around the country. Again, elitism at its best. Absolute elitism, and that's not going to get her any votes in a flyover state. But really, she's pandering. She's pandering for the black vote. She knows the black vote is really important. That's what got Obama elected twice. She has to realize, one, she's not black, so that's not going to work. And two, her husband was responsible for a lot of these laws that put a lot of blacks in jail. So those are the facts, and she's going to have to live with those throughout the campaign.
Yeah, and it's time to revisit those laws, Tom. I mean, they were in the 1990s. I was in college.
Those laws are one thing, but also let's look at in Baltimore. 90% of the homicide victims are black from black suspects. That's not inconsequential crime. That's real crime, and that's where the focus should be. And you're still going to have tension between the police and real criminals.
Quickly, Christopher, 10 seconds.
Tom, I would never say somebody who commits murder shouldn't be in jail, but, look, a guy who's a user, I don't know that he should be.
All right, gentlemen, great conversation. Thank you both. Christopher Hahn, Tom Borelli. Give Me 5 is next.